What up, nerds? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Leslie, and today on the Nerdy Narrative, it's time for my weekly update. This is just a little video, a little chat where I talk about all the things that I've been up to this week. Mostly it has to do with reading, because that's my favorite hobby. That's what I spend the majority of my time doing. I'm either reading, I'm talking about reading, or I'm writing about reading. So let's start with the books that I finished. First in the pile is The Measure by Nikki Erlich. This was a surprise hit for me. One of the most impactful books that I have read this year so far. I honestly think this is a book for every reader, no matter your favorite genre. To have such a large element of magical realism, it's cleverly written, it's logical, has a compelling cast of characters that are just absolutely unforgivable. Just a fantastic read. I did film a review the other day. I'm working on editing it, so it should be going up very soon. I'll have it linked along with all of the other books that I'm going to be talking about here today in the description below if you want to read more about the book description. Though in this case, the book description did not convince me that I was going to like this book. I actually thought I wasn't going to like it at all. I read it because it was my book club pick of the month and ended up being a sleeper 5-star read for me. The next book that I finished, I actually finished it last night. The first book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series by Matt Denneman. I was surprised to find out when I was reading up on it after I finished that it's a self-published series, and it just recently, the first 3 books only, Matt Denneman sold to Ace Publishing, who is an imprint, I believe, of Penguin Random House. I may be wrong about that. If I am, I'll make sure and note it in the description box below. I'll look it up when I get to this part in editing. It is phenomenal, but in my opinion, the best format for this series is the audiobook. Jeff Hayes is the narrator, and he is in the elite of audiobook narrators in my opinion. This may just be my series of the year. I do believe it's going to be my audiobook series of the year. It's just wonderful. This book falls into the lit RPG genre. If you have ever been a gamer at any point in your life, this series is a must read for you. I'm telling you, it is phenomenal. Even if you're not a gamer, I think you could find enjoyment in this series. I will say there is a lot of language in it, so if that is something that turns you off in books, then maybe you don't want to pick this series up. The quick and dirty of the book description is aliens have arrived to Earth and they have completely leveled every building on the planet. They have flattened the surface. The only survivors are those who happened to be outside at the time that this happened. Now, the survivors have a choice. They can either stay on the planet and try to survive, or they can enter into an underground tunnel leading below the surface and enter into the World Dungeon, which is a televised event across all of the galaxies. Trillions of beings watch this show, and all of the survivors are contestants or gamers, or what they call them in this series are crawlers. Carl is our main character. He's outside trying to catch his ex-girlfriend's Persian show cat, Princess Donut, and oh my gosh, they enter this dungeon together and it is just pure joy. I have laughed out loud more times than I can ever remember laughing at a book. This makes me laugh more than the Stranger Times series by C.K. McDonald. So for any of you who have read that series, just take all of that laughter and triple it, quadruple it. Just read this series. The last book that I finished this week is a comic, actually. It's called Beowulf, and I got it from my library. So it has the shiny plastic on it that makes it not want to play nice with my light. I'm going to do my best to not blind y'all. Well, actually, you see the cover. It's super cute. I enjoyed this very much. It's a retelling of the epic poem Beowulf. Zach Weinersmith is the one who wrote this delightful little poem. It's a children's book. It's middle grade, but I got a lot of enjoyment out of it. The gist of this little retelling is there are a group of kids that have a tree house. They sit around, they drink soda, eat candy, they get stains everywhere, they just play board games, they're very loud, and their tree house hangs over the property of Mr. Grendel, who is a fun-hating adult, and he can touch a child and immediately turn them into a teenager or an adult who wants to talk about the stock market and insurance and taxes. It's hysterical. Mr. Grindle is tired of hearing all the noise of the kids. He decides to take matters into his own hands and take over the treehouse and clean it up and bleach everything. And the kids have this one child, Beowulf, who has volunteered to stand up to this tyrant. It's super cute. Would definitely recommend if you just want to have something to sit down with. That was a recommendation of my friend Star, and it turned out to be just what I needed. I had a very frustrating morning. My computer won't turn on. It still won't turn on. I was frustrated. My husband couldn't figure out what was going on with it before he had to go to work. So I was like, all right, let me just sit down and relax. What do I have? Beowulf. And that put me in a much better mood, and here we are just having a good time talking about books now. Well, maybe not this next book. So I did have one DNF this week. I requested the ARC for Andrea Stewart's new release coming out, The Gods Below. I made it to 32%. I really did not like this book from the start. I just kept going because this is an author I've never read before. I had zero attachment to any of the characters. By the time I made it to the 32% mark, I started getting an idea of, okay, this is what this plot is shaping up to be. I still didn't care. I was not enjoying it. I was having to make myself pick it up, and I was like, why am I doing this? I'm not gonna force it, so noped out. Moving into what I am currently reading. First up, I have Return of the Griffin by J.C.M. Byrne. This is the second book in the Hybrid Helix series. He's unearthing this book. He's trying to help them out. There's something happening that are spawning these huge sharks that are wiping out millions of people before they can take them out. And they're running out of options that they can use in order to take these sharks out. So that's where I'm at currently in the book. I mean, who doesn't like a good fight between a big ass shark? Come on, y'all. It's summer. This is a great summer read. So definitely enjoying this one. I'm about halfway through. I can't speed through this one. This is my first time reading the second book of the series. So I'm absorbing a lot of information. There's a lot of little things that are getting introduced into this one that I think are going to tell me a little bit more about the main character's past. So I'm trying to be sure that I take note of all of those little things and watch it not add up to anything. Y'all, I'm just over here trying to be Nancy Drew. The other book that I'm currently reading last night when I was walking with my husband is when I finished the first Dungeon Crawler Carl audiobook. Let me tell you, we were not even halfway done with our walk. I was pulling my phone out. I had already downloaded book 2. I kicked that one off, so I started that one. I'm still at the very beginning of that one. Carl and Princess Donut have just entered into level 3 in the dungeon, so they're learning what's new about the level, what the expectations are as far as how many days they have to navigate, all that sort of fun thing. There's also a few new choices and things they get to make at the start of the level, so I've just started on that one. My husband started the third book in the series when we were getting ready to go, and from all the laughing he was doing, I am guessing that the hilarity has just continued on through that one. I'm so excited to keep going in this series. Which brings me to what's next on the TBR. Well, I finally sat down a couple of days ago and organized all of my upcoming reads that I have. I looked to see when their release dates were so that I could make sure and have them read and reviewed by that date. So I moved some things around. So my next read is an arc that I have here from Richard Thomas called Incarnate. I am so excited for this one. I love Richard Thomas. Y'all have heard me cover a lot of his work here on the channel. I know off the top of my head I have a dedicated review for at least one of his works on here. I think the rest may have been covered in prior weekly wrap-ups, but I'll have whatever I can find linked in the description box below. This one features a main character who is a sin eater, which is exactly why I agreed to read this arc. I have been fascinated reading books about sin eaters for years. Way long ago, like 20 years ago, I worked at a Christian bookstore and Francine Rivers wrote a book about a sin eater, and I read that, loved it, wanted to know more. I have since been reading about them every time I can find a book about it. Something else that interests me about sin eaters is reading across different cultures because each culture describes them differently. But in Incarnate, which is a horror novel, as you can guess by the cover, In a frozen tundra, a sin eater fights for redemption and absolution as monstrous creatures ravage a community already struggling to survive. So that's two things I'm already interested in reading about. I love reading horror books that take place in winter or in frozen climates because snow makes everything so quiet and it hides so much, and it hides the carnage. It makes everything so pretty because a slasher could come through, wipe out a whole village. It snows a whole bunch, it hides it until the unsuspecting tourist, the hiker out there, runs into it and they step on something and they bring it out and it's a decapitated head. I don't know, y'all. That's just my imagination. The next book on the TBR. Oh my goodness. When I got the email from Crystal Lake Publishing asking if I would be interested to read and review this arc, ooh, you talking about replying so fast. One of my favorite books that I have read. If you like possession horror, guys, this book is for you. I know I haven't read it yet, but I read the first one, The Exorcist House by Nick Roberts. I did do a dedicated review. I'll have it linked. This is the sequel. It's called, well, it's kind of the sequel prequel. It's called The Exorcist House Genesis, and it's a dual timeline from what I read in the book description, where we go back in time and read more about this. I'm trying to think of the word. He's not a fake exorcist, but he operated outside of the church. Like, he was never ordained to be able to do these. He is the previous owner of the farmhouse that in the first book the family moved into, and oh my gosh, it's so good. And then the other timeline is the present, which takes place 3 years after the first book, and the brother of the husband wants to buy the house because he wants to host some sort of like paranormal ghost reality TV show there. I cannot wait. The Exorcist House is one of my all-time favorite possession horror novels, so I'm just so excited to read the sequel. And then a carryover that I mentioned from last week is New York Minute by Stephen Aryan. It's a crime thriller mystery novella. It's set in an alternate New York City. Our main character is a former cop, now private investigator, who gets a really unusual client. The most notorious crime boss in New York City has enlisted our main character to help find out who has kidnapped his daughter. Now, if I know anything about crime bosses, it's that you get a limited window to find whoever it is they're looking for, or they do it themselves, and the end result is a whole lot of body bags. I'm so excited to read this. I love Stephen Aryan's writing, so I have no doubt he's going to nail this one too. So that's everything that I have been reading this week and what I'm planning to read. Let's talk about what happened on the channel this week. On Tuesday, my dedicated review for a really fun science fiction novel, Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. That review went live on the channel, so you can check that out if you haven't already. If you love Andy Weir, you will absolutely love Mickey 7. On Thursday, my review for Into the Black Nowhere by Meg Gardner goes up. That is the second book in Meg Gardner's Unsub series, which is a series where each novel is inspired by a real life serial killer. So really enjoyed that one. That's going up on Thursday. And then next week on the channel, Tuesday, my video discussing why I DNF'd The Sky on Fire by Jen Lyons goes up. And then on Thursday, as part of an online book tour hosted by Angry Robot Books, my non-spoiler dedicated review for Chasm by Stacey McEwen is going to go up. That's the second book in the Galatian trilogy, which is a fun fantasy romance trilogy that's wrapping up in September. The third and final book of the trilogy comes out, I want to say, on September 10th, called Valley. Other than that, let's see, what else did I get up to this week? We went to see the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. That movie was hilarious. I loved it. It's probably my favorite movie that I've watched this year. Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, you can tell that they had the best time making this movie. Just loved it. There's so many cameos that I enjoyed. Don't worry, those of you that haven't seen the movie yet, but you're going to, I'm not going to say who the cameos are, but I thought they were fantastic. Also watched the finale for House of the Dragon. I just knew how it was going to end, and my husband was getting excited, and I'm like, don't get excited. This is one huge setup for the first episode in season 3. There was little to no action, but there was a lot of good stuff that happened that makes me super stoked for the next season. I can't wait. I just hope it's not 2 or 3 years later like this one was. In Orlando, Halloween season has already begun. All of the theme parks have decorated for Halloween. Disney has started their Not So Scary party, and Halloween Horror Nights has kicked off a little bit early their house tours. They have this tour that is a lights on tour of the haunted houses that are part of Halloween Horror Nights. There's 10 houses every year, and they do a 3-house tour and a 6-house tour, and the 2 tours are different houses. So Chris and I did the 3-house tour. We went through Slaughter Cinema 2, Triplets of Terror, and the Museum Deadly Exhibit. All 3 of these are original houses created by Universal Studios. Triplets of Terror is going to be House of the Year. I just know it. It had the best story, and it's not just because it's a slasher. It had the best story and the best theming from start to finish. It starts in 1984, and when you walk into the house, there's a facade that looks like a house from that time period. You walk in and you enter into the first room, and it's a birthday party, a family birthday party for the triplets. And I won't say the names of the triplets in case you're someone who does not want spoilers, because their names haven't been revealed outside of the tour yet. But the triplets are 9 years old, and for whatever reason, this was the day they chose to murder their entire family. And then you proceed through the house and you go through this hallway that maps out every 10 years. The triplets go on a murder spree and recreate this birthday party. After you go through that room, and there's like a little podcast room where they're talking about it, they can't figure out why these murders only happen every 10 years. And then you enter into the 2024 birthday party murder spree, which these triplets have the same birthday as me, March the 3rd. And then you see how it is that they're always able to escape the scene, which leaves it open to, and would be really cool if in 10 years Universal does a sequel house. Just absolutely loved it. I do have some pictures that I got from the houses that I'm not sharing publicly because some people don't want to see that before they're able to go into the houses. I'm going to wait until October, and I'm going to share and do a little write-up about each house and share my pictures on my Patreon like I did last year. We had a great time touring the houses and seeing everything and getting the story, because when you're going through the houses during the event, you're going so quickly and you can't just stop and stand and take in all of the things that are going on in all of the rooms. And to me, I like knowing the story before I go into the house, because then it's easier for me to see what's going on and just really enjoy the scare actors. We're doing the 6-house tour on September 1st, which is a couple of days after the event opens, but we're going to go on opening night, and I believe our plan of attack is to do the 3 houses that we've already toured. Then we'll probably catch the Nightmare Fuel show, and I will try to maybe incorporate some footage from the event and put at the end of weekly updates in September, October if y'all are interested. If not, just skip that part. All right, friends, that's going to do it for me this week. Hope you enjoyed hearing about my week. If you would like to share about yours, you know where to go to do it. Hit that like button on the way down if you enjoyed the video. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.